end up with a dictatorship of one sort or the other. So, so that's what I think about the long term, prospect for politics. I think that technology centers power in a very few. They will talk a game about it being distributed technology, but it never ends up being as distributed as they say it will be, and it ends up being centralized in the hands of a few chimpanzees who are and have the power, and because they want to keep that power, they extend their power, and it goes on and on and on, and that would happen whether or not it was done through a fascism or done through a strong centralized government that was controlled by a few oligarchs and people. I think we end up at the same place.
Yeah. My take on it is that what we should do, and I think that we will, is that every human will have a place in the cloud that's heavily secure, and they'll go in there and they'll put their data in there for all of their life, and they'll share it with whom they want. And that if everybody lives kind of in their own world, it makes security a problem. Hack into 300 million computers. Oh boy, that'd be a chore. And I think that it gives everybody a place to put their private data. And I think that all of this is private. And if people have their private data, then I think that democracy has a much better opportunity, because I think power will emerge based on the connections deep in the system. So that's the model that I see. Thank you for letting me share.
Well, I hope you're right. I hope
Go
you're
ahead,
right.
David. Go ahead, David.
Thank you. I was going to suggest, Lino, that we raise our hand rather than just having back and forth conversations, but
I did.
Lino had
Yeah, he did.
thank you.
It's that Kaufman is the problem.
But you guys opened up a nice spot for me to plug my presentation next week, when we're going to be talking about politics. And I'd like to spend a little time at some point talking about whether we should be talking about this sort of topic that has such risk in terms of alienating the members of the discussion.
Oh, I have to raise my hand. I'm so sorry. Let me find it.
Tom is ahead of you as far as having raised his hand.
Okay.
Yeah. I want to figure out how to stop this automatic lowering of the hand. This is nothing to do with any of you. This is,
I don't know that it's automatic.
No, it does.
Oh,
it
okay.
does. It does. It decides that you aren't participating and lowers your hand. Or if
do it.
It's right now. It looks like you're done talking, so we'll lower your hand in 3 seconds. Cancel. And as you see, it did.
Okay.
It's a feature of their new AI, and I hate it. I'd rather see 10 people having their hands up. What I was going to say when I put my hand up was that when Washington ran for re-election, he was accused of becoming a dictator.
By his opponent, perhaps?
I don't know if it was by his opponents or just by people who didn't care for him. He was not the great. We think of him as a great and wonderful leader, from the glorious ages, but at the time his reputation was not nearly so high, especially among the other politicians. He lucked out being the general in charge, and he should go away back to his fields now and leave us to run the country.
Jason,
Um,
oh, good.
go.
Jason,
Oh, I'm not ready to speak yet. I'm still listening
Well,
to.
put your hand down.
I'll be ready to speak in a minute. I just want to hear what you have to say first.
Lino,
Thank you. Yes. Back to the political dictatorship and the political spectrum. I think I made myself pretty clear in terms of should we be talking about politics. I think we should do a little bit of normative behavior and just say, don't be taking one another out and getting in arguments on, one position versus another, and play like adults, and don't be discounting people, and don't be mean and all of that, and just be adults and just have the political conversation, because I think we have a take on the future that I don't think a lot of people have. And I think the conversation on politics is very imminent, and I think that we should have it. So that's my opinion. Thank you for letting me share.
Jason, your hand is still raised.
Yeah. I guess we speak on a wide range of issues here. The social issues, technological issues, moral and ethical issues. I try to incorporate my ethics and the practical results of policy into my presentations, because most people confuse intentions with practical results and practical outcomes. And so it's a can of worms either way. I think a lot of people also mistake intelligence for moral absolutism or being right on something. There are plenty of well-educated idiots out there, and I believe it's possible to educate yourself into stupidity. Personally, I've seen it myself in my own lifetime. So I'm afraid that you could do such a thing here. But you might not like the feedback or the results you get. It just depends on if you're willing to change your point of view in the absence of better information. If you're not willing to change your ideological viewpoint in the face of overwhelming information that discredits your belief, well, then what does that say about you as a person?
Well, there we go.
Robert,
So here's I would prefer that we don't do it, David, because there are people in this group who believe that they have the best information and the best slant, and are highly motivated to provide us with that, and use words like idiot if you don't agree with them. And if we start doing that, I don't know how that becomes productive for our little group.
Well, we lose volunteers.
Yeah, so we can deal with these issues in our outside the group life quite adequately. At least I've been able to, more than adequately. And so I prefer not to. I don't even know if I'd come.
Where do we draw the line?
David,
I have a couple of things that I want to mention. I've been reading this week a book called Ingredients, as in food additives and type of foods. It's subtitled something like Things That We Eat and Put on Our Body. I highly recommend it. It was published in 2020 and has a lot to say about science as applied to food. It also has a fair amount to say about science as applied to using numbers to analyze complex systems. And as you all know, I'm sort of interested in complex systems anyway, so my cognitive bias is delighted with this particular book because it feeds a different slant to my interest in complex systems. I'll put the link in the chat.
I have my hand up.
Go ahead, Bob.
Okay, I'd be more interested in that than the other subject, David. So if you wanted to do it on that, that'd be great. But you can do it on politics. I just see problems. So
I agree with you about seeing problems, and the question is, we're people, and so politics gets into every discussion, almost. It's all, connected.
it can be, but the way that Jason does it before he went into his idiot rant is exactly the way that it should be done, because then you're talking about policy. You're not talking about political parties. You're not talking about a specific vote or election. I think Jason's on the right line, the right level for that, and so that's what I would have to say.
And hopefully I will keep the discussion next week to that side of the line.
Oh no, you won't be able to.
Lino?
My own take on it is that I think that we could set some rules, guidelines that say, don't talk about individual people and candidates, talk generalities. Don't mention parties, just talk about liberal, conservative, middle of the road, environmentalist, and just use labels and roles and stuff and just talk about it totally in general, because I believe that it needs to be integrated into our culture very deeply to get technology in, because I think that's our salvation, is to have the right technology in everybody's hands. So anyway, enough of a soapbox. Thank you.
David?
I'm sorry. I lost it.
Jason?
I think the greatest issue with that, and I've given this a bit of thought. I've given this a hell of a lot of thought. We just don't have enough time in these futurist meetings. We go from like 9:30 to 12. We could talk about political philosophy and morality and policy and governance for 50 hours, and we'd barely be this, and we still wouldn't do it justice. Take it from me, I did a futurist presentation many years back on the future of government. I couldn't do it justice, and nobody who's attempted to do such a fool's errand since then has been able to do it justice either. And so we are deluding ourselves if we think that we can get to any sort. We can't even agree that the sky is blue in the amount of time that we've got in these presentations. That's how superficial it is. So that time is our time, patience, and being patient with each other. Yeah, I'll shut up.
I don't think our purpose is to reach agreement.
No, it's not.
Well, I can remember as a college student in the philosophy department, we would have these off-campus meetings with all the instructors and all the majors and all the minors. And it was a state institution. So we would have as faculty, we had retired Lutheran ministers, atheists, Freudians, communists, Eastern mystics. And that was a part of the authoritative side of the faculty. And we would have some very, very interesting discussions. For me as a student, I learned how a communist would argue with a Christian. I learned how a Freudian would engage with an atheist. I learned how these particular characters saw the world and engaged and so forth. And the thing is that we all knew that there wasn't any way one of these guys was going to walk in as a communist and walk out as a Christian, or vice versa. They were all lifelong describers and believers in that particular point of view. And I think that was it was healthy to see that they constantly were engaged in a dialogue. And it was a fairly healthy dialogue. Lino. You're muted, Lino.
Thank you. Yes. One of the things that I'm thinking through in my mind, and I think it might be a good idea if we can pull it off, is we've got a calendar and we've got a Zoom. And so if we could come up with the process, there's no reason, that Tom couldn't ask. I'm going to have a meeting on Wednesday, 10 to 12 on quantum physics. And David could have a talk on philosophy, and just have a calendar that we're in meetup, and just fill it with meetings and invite people, and they'll wander by and they'll meet us in one meeting. And we're trying to gather an audience. And so just fill the calendar with events that go, like Jason says, into some depth, and put them on the calendar and record them. So anyway, my thoughts. Thank you.
David?
It's getting almost to 10, and we have a couple of people who have joined us who we're not very familiar with. Most of us are regulars. Mike and Fika, we'd like to welcome you. Would you like to say a word or two about who you are and why you came? I know you've both been here before.
Hello there. Hello. Yes, I will turn on my camera soon, but my name is Spike. I'm connecting from Ottawa, Canada, and I run a group called Minds and Hearts Without Borders International. What else can I say? If there's any question, I would be more than happy to answer.
Can you tell me the name of that group again, Fika?
Of course, it's a secular group called Minds and Hearts Without Borders International.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Sure.
Sounds wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm Mike McMillan. Again, I see the meetings on Meetup, and when I see a topic I'm interested in, I join. And that's basically what it comes down to.
Cool. Thank you, Michael. Tom?
Oh, I always thought that the purpose of the Futurists was to come to the meeting and occasionally present and show something new, expose me to something I hadn't thought about or wasn't aware of.
That sounds like that sounds good.
And if we divide into having many presentations where people can look at what they're interested in, that defeats the purpose. Because if you're interested in it, you should already be looking into it. Our group's purpose is to find you things to become interested in, not that you already are interested in. You people don't have my love of navigation, for example. So I'll do presentations about navigation.
Was this a shot at Mike?
No. This is not meant to be a shot at anyone. there are great new things coming in navigation. They're not going to work through an EMP event, though, so we may be back to using the sextant and the stars again.
That's a good point, Tom.
Well, we have about 5 more minutes before we presentation starts. Go ahead, Lino.
Do we have a process for getting on a list of meetings? If I want to just like H-Tom talked about a topic, just get it into a queue somewhere so it's under consideration, and do an outline that people can judge from, or whatever we set up, but just have an onboarding place where people can say, I've got a topic I'd like to talk about, and here's one paragraph that describes it. So an onboarding process is what I would look for, and I don't know, David, if that's in your bailiwick, but
Well,
anyway, end of thought.
I'm trying to make a list of topics, and I'm currently the person who has the calendar of who's doing the presentations. But I'm hoping to put together a committee that will handle both of those. So if you're interested, you're on it.
We have a calendar. We have a calendar, and it's at one point it was planned out to the end of the year.
Yeah, Brian was the keeper of that, and I've sort of adopted it only because I haven't had other volunteers for that committee.
I just wanted to quickly say.
So let David know if you're interested in making a presentation. We usually review what's coming up at the end of the meeting, so that would be a good time. Go ahead, Jason.
I just wanted to quickly say that I subscribe to, like Bob, I subscribe to Tom's theory of new and intriguing discoveries. I remember the first time I ever opened up the Whole Earth catalog, and it was just filled with new eye-catching theories and inventions and principles that I had never heard of before. I remember one of the very first meetings I ever came to, it was a presentation on the material science of graphene. I like futurist presentations that deal with previously unexplored niche esoteric topics in fascinating interest. I think part of the problem is that our membership base has grown stale, and given the great age and venerability of this organization, we have burned up a lot of our exoteric topics already. In order to find new ones, we need to investigate these new subjects, become semi-sub in them, and then offer to make presentations on them. But that involves that the presentation makers do new novel research in extremely novel, or at least novel for this group, fascinating subject matter. And I bemoan the loss of, when we used to have more guest speakers, but, that is what it is. I know, Bob, you used to bring a lot more guest speakers, and I really enjoyed them. I remember one in particular that you brought, which did a presentation on telecommuting before the pandemic. And we all know how remote work took off after the pandemic. So that was kind of a bleeding edge presentation speaker who worked, I believe, out of West St. Paul for years. So I personally would like to, I personally agree with you, Tom. And I think that would bring a lot more people.
I
Hey,
think that,
Stan,
I think
Stan,
that,
one more and then we have to start the presentation.
I think that
Yes.
the general community of scientists, there is this notion of blue sky science, which means, as far as I know, cutting edge. What is the edge of what we know versus what we don't know? And if we take that attitude as futurists trying to always be looking into things that we've never seen before or being exposed to things we've never seen before, that's a fairly rare commodity. And it's also, I remember as a student trying to find a master's thesis, when it comes to doing a research in an educational community, the really important research is really expensive. There's a lot of there's a lot of technical issues that you have to be engaged in to do research. You know, if you look at Fermi Labs, for example, or the Large Hadron Collider, you just can't go out and, you know, do that without the thousands and tons of money. So it's you know, all we can do really is have our assets, have our documentary assets of research that we can bring together and come together with, and how we approach that and filter that out, so to speak.
Okay, I don't see any more comments. So Bob, you want to go ahead with your
So that's a great segue. Okay. David, did you want to say something?
Well, I put the title for ingredients into the chat. I think it has a lot to say about complex systems and a fair amount to say about the kinds of things you can predict and the kinds of things you have to deal with statistically that have applicability to our understanding of the future and how we should treat forecasting.
When I first came to these meetings, there was a guy named George
Kubik.
Kubik, and he always wanted to stress understanding the difference between prediction and forecasting. Okay. And I still don't know what the difference between prediction and forecasting is, but at least he made me think.
He had a great picture of a guy sitting in front of a crystal ball who was making predictions.
Mm-hmm.
We don't do predictions.
So a prediction
we don't predict the future, but we forecast possibilities and how we might address them in the future.
So prediction is absolutist about it. So maybe
predictions have dates.
Oh, predictions have dates. Oh, I haven't had a date for a long time, but that's a different issue altogether.
You don't need one.
Okay. So, all right. So now we're going to talk a little bit about today about AI and whether or not it will help us advance ourselves as a species through science. So far, what I have experienced with regards to AI is fine, but it's reasonably mundane. It hasn't really allowed me to be able to grasp its capacity to make fundamental changes, foundational changes in the way that we see reality. That doesn't mean it won't. It's just so far whatever's going on inside my head hasn't seen that yet. So I thought that would be an interesting topic. And interestingly enough, you were talking about how much it costs to do research, Dan. One of the little videos today is going to talk about something that's just become publicly known within the last week, and how it may affect a number of things, but specifically the cost and speed of research and testing and hypothesizing. So I thought I would start by just asking the group to take off its mutes, okay, and have an open mic, okay. Everybody can be unmuted, and just talk about what, if you are at all excited about the prospects for artificial intelligence with regards to making advances for humanity, what specifically are you excited about? What specifically do you hope that you'll be able to see during your lifetime or your children's lifetime, etc.? So the mic is open. Feel free to just tell. You have to spend a long time. Just something like, for example, I'll give an example. Okay, this is. I would like to know what the hell dark energy and dark matter is, and why it makes a difference. So that's something I'd like to know.
Advances in medicine.
Any specific advances?
Oh, Dr. Google and Dr. Watson. Who,
okay.
The university put my, Lord, this was 20 years ago now.
I remember. This has to do with your eyes, right?
Yeah. And they, both of them, with a day later, came back and said I should have a particular procedure done in anticipation of my having glaucoma. And it was done, and probably saved my sight.
And you'd like
15 years later.
And you'd like to see more advances like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else?
I in general, I would like to see things that are considered pseudoscience subjected to AI analysis, looking for experimentation that might turn it into real science. Because we have a lot of mythology, a lot of stuff, and a lot of thoughts that are wrong, and we may have some that are right. So pseudoscience to science with AI. End of thought.
So you'd like to see more truth, more validity, more credence,
and spirituality, and softer things, just things that we believe we have a science. Use AI to get experiments to prove it.
Okay.
And there's a lot of it floating around in the what we call the crackpot world.
The ether, yes.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Come on, guys.
Obviously, anything having to do with the genetic research that's going on with Cas9 and CRISPR, that kind of thing. And I know that that's what Demis is going to be talking about regarding protein folding. And we are all protein, basically, our structure. And so to be able to understand what's possible, cure things, and not only to cure things, but to keep the cure from disrupting things that don't need to be cured as far as treatments are concerned.
Okay. Anybody else?
Well, I was going to mention that plus something else. AI has proven particularly good at protein folding, so it's good at developing mRNA type vaccines, among other things. It also is generally good at synthesizing. As its knowledge base grows, it can synthesize different ideas from other ideas. And that could lead us into new areas of research, all the way from mathematics and physics to medicine and psychology and brain knowledge of our own brains.
Sociology.
A lot of research into that now, but AI can help accelerate that, I think.
Mike, just join in.
Oh, yeah. I was looking at it from a more practical day-to-day aspect, how AI can be applied to instrumentalities, robotics, and how that can help people on a day-to-day basis. Someone mentioned health. Applying AI to a robotic could be great for helping people in need. And its application in manufacturing and things like that. So I really look forward to its application there. We're already seeing large language models do a lot of work there in streamlining code development and things like that, image development and creation, marketing and sales. So I'm looking forward to more of that.
David?
Yeah, I was just seeing this week an advertisement for a machine that manages metal, folding and shaping, basically a big robot that was controlled by a large language model, supposedly. And I was also seeing a discussion of drones being used in fire suppression, controlled by an AI.
Okay. Fika, do you have any ideas? What you'd like to see?
Sure, thank you very much. So I'm not a scientist, so I come from a different perspective, and I would like to see for the AI to close certain gaps that are there basically because we all come from different experiences in life. So anything that could lead to better diagnosis, or more correct prognosis and all those things when it comes to different humans, particularly in medical science. And I'm also looking forward to it. As many more jobs will be given to AI, maybe this would provide us with a little bit more luxury and time and energy, as a matter of fact, to think more about matters that could concern humanity and the ways that we could think better, how we can get rid of starvation worldwide and such matters. So that's where I hope AI could actually help us a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you. Lionel?
Thank you. One I'm really interested in is developmental biology. Studying DNA and taking statistical data and finding patterns, and developmentally from pre-birth to death. Just follow the body all the way, look at the cellular, the chemicals, all of that with AI, and see if we can get a confirmation through DNA analysis, experimentation, and be able to thereby hopefully figure out how the body unfolds its duality in the DNA into flesh and bone. End of thought. Thank you.
Okay. David?
One of the things that Ingredients talks about is truth and public health, and the difference between diseases like scurvy and heart disease or cancer, where you have a very clear set of characteristics associated with the lack of a particular mineral in your diet. And if you add that mineral into your diet, you get a very clear cure in a relatively short time. Unlike heart disease, where there could be all sorts of different interactions, and it develops over a long period of time, so it's very difficult to do a cheap, quick, distinctive test.
Thank you. Tom?
One of the problems I can see coming with this is that computers can be exceedingly stubborn. And once an idea is set and accepted, attempts to deviate from that, you will be met with, you can't do that because the computer says we should do it this way.
Tom Walsh? Thank you.
AI has potential to change our society quite a bit. And one way is through technology. I'm thinking in particular BCI, brain-computer interfaces. As they improve, AI can help us communicate instantly with anyone else in the world who is hooked up, and can also help us to access all the knowledge of the world. And that's going to change how our society works, I think, and how we tend to think. If we get to that point where the BCIs are two-way and can help us with our affect our memories and our thoughts.
Thank you. David?
It also will add an authority, potentially, that will just add to the confusion that we already have.
It's also subject to hacking, perhaps, which is a danger.
Chris?
Chris.
Okay, here's what AI should do. Here would be the most important thing for AI to do.
So this is it?
This is it.
Okay, all right.
It should, given the realities of human nature and the realities of limited resources and all of the realities of the current world, it should come up with the best possible society for human beings, whether that be democracy or a king or anything like that, whether it be civilization states or anything like that, it should come up with the best possible governance style for human beings. And that includes the best possible state of technology. If there's a level of technology that is the best for humans, and if it is as good as we hope it will be, the final answer will be a state of society without AI.
I think the opposite would occur.
With only AIs.
Stan and then David?
I remember often when I was teaching, asking my students the question, if there's anything that needs to be done, is it not the case that there's only one best way to do it?
Yeah.
And the answer that when I ask some of the people that I know that are smarter than I am with engineering degrees, they just laugh at me and say, you can't possibly integrate all of the complexity and all of the variables in that problem. You can't do that. And so you can pass that ball down to AI and say, do this as a Hail Mary, but then you don't have any humans that are in the it's like the Go problem with DeepMind. The computer started playing Go that was better than any human that was playing Go. They had no idea where it was coming up with these ideas. So maybe it would be nice if the AI that does that kind of credible analysis and legislation or dictation or whatever, if it could explain it to us, or maybe give us some kind of educational tutorial as to why it does it that way, that would be nice.
Okay, we'll take one more. We'll take one more. David, thank you. Thank you, Stan.
I was just reminded of the story about Pandora, who was supposedly able to No, I'm mixing up the person. Somebody was able to predict the future accurately, and nobody would believe them.
That would,
Cassandra.
Cassandra, thank you.
but I believe that Cassandra actually joined in a singing duo with Pandora and toured as Simon and Garfunkel. I'm pretty sure that that's true, but that may not be true. So I just want to add one that I'd like to see. I'd like to understand consciousness, and I'd like to understand more about how my brain works, or increasingly doesn't work. And I'd like AI to help me understand that. That would be, I'd enjoy that knowledge. So
Yeah.
with that in mind, Carol, do you have anything to add? You came a little late to the game.
Well, I would be incredibly wary of something like what William is talking about. There is no such thing as human nature. There are wildly differing human natures. And a society that is perfect.
We're brainstorming here, not criticizing. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
We have one more new person who just joined.
Oh, who joined? Oh, my goodness sakes.
Carrie.
Eric Hand.
No.
Oh, Doug Shoemaker.
Carrie.
Okay.
Well, Eric's an old person. He's been with us a lot.
Extremely old.
But there's new. I'd like to just hear something from Carrie, if possible. Find out from
Where's
Seattle.
Carrie? Where's Carrie from Seattle? Oh, there you are.
Oh, there you are. Oh, yeah, we've seen you before.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm still pre-coffee, so I'm running around trying to get.
Okay. Well, thanks for joining us.
Well, the subject is that what is one or two things that you would really like to see AI help us with, or discoveries that you'd like to see it make?
Ooh. Boy, I'd like to see it work better first.
Okay. No more hallucinations.
Yeah, that would be the first thing. You know, it really does. So far, it seems to do the best job at helping people write. So I think that's where its natural aptitude is. Although I think the data analysis angle is spot on. I mean, that's the other thing it's going to do real well. But the problems that we see now with data analysis that it's doing in the things we know about gives me concern that we need to have some checks and balances and how to double and triple check this stuff, like have multiple redundant systems operating under slightly different parameters and see if we're coming up with the same results or something like that.
Yeah, it depends a lot on its training, what its database it's working from is.
Yep, garbage in, garbage out.
We're going to go forward now, guys, and we're going to play. Oh, there's two in the, and we're going to go forward and play the first video. What video is that, Stan? What did I put down first? I can probably figure this out. Wait a second. I put in how AI is unlocking the secrets of nature and the universe. This is a 25-minute video with Demis Hassabis, who is the co-founder and significant brain behind DeepMind, and presently is the head of all AI research and probably other things that are AI oriented at Google. So he's going to talk to you about this, because in my mind, he is probably going to be one of the people that will take us beyond where we are into real scientific discoveries. Okay.
I'm pointing out there.
Okay, recording in progress.
Okay. I have a couple things. learning to play games is kind of a niche thing, because every game is defined by its rules. Every game has specific rules. So those can be learned every like board game or something. I see Tom shaking his head. I just want to mention that it's kind of a rather different thing from dealing with unknown and learning new stuff. But it's true that what was it, AlphaGo or one of those learned not from knowing the rules, but from observing a whole lot of other games. So there's progress being made there. Well, toward the end of that talk, they were talking about AGI, that's artificial general intelligence, which means a computer that's as smart as a human. And then they were talking about the dangers of these AGIs self-programming. And there are predictions that once they start doing that and improving themselves, within a matter of probably a couple decades, we'll have ASI, artificial superintelligence, in which the AI is many, many orders of magnitude smarter than all of humanity put together. And at that point, we don't know what it'd be doing. It might have very different objectives from what humanity normally would have. So that's probably the danger that they're talking about. And if people don't really get a handle on that in the next decade or so, it'll be beyond us. There's no way to stop it. So it's an interesting quandary.
So they are talking about that, but they're talking about Mullah also. And so Mullah is such as the following, okay? You, Tom, now own a company, okay? And you have working for you 300 people. And each one of them depends upon their job to put food on the table and pay for their livelihoods now and in retirement, their kids' college education, etc. And you get a great feeling of satisfaction, knowing that you've been able to build a company that employs 300 people who've been able to build a life because of your company, okay? And there are other companies that you're in competition with, and they each have employees. And you, because of robotics and AI, have an option now. You can replace your employees with robots, and they'll be better, faster, cheaper, and safer than the employees that you now have. And you don't really want to do it because you love your company and you love your employees, okay? But if you don't do it, your competition will, and you'll go out of business. And you're in competition, and each one of your competition is viewing reality in the same way. And so the cost of this competitive mullah is that eventually there's fewer and fewer and fewer, and eventually maybe no jobs for human beings. And it is wonderfully theoretically to believe that we'll be able to adjust for that quite easily, but maybe not. And this same kind of competitive nature and problem involves in countries who want to be able to capture and secure natural resources for themselves, food, etc., water, etc., and want to be able to defend themselves militarily from anyone who wants to come and take their food and their natural resources away. And every single company will be faced with the fact that if they don't use AI for these purposes, someone else will, and their country will be destroyed. And that's Mullah. Okay, superhuman artificial general intelligence is a tool that could possibly be used for Moloch, but Moloch has to do with the competitive nature of the human animal. So,
Right, which means we'll have very little chance of actually controlling what's going to happen.
that's correct. But Moloch could take place well before superhuman artificial general intelligence. Okay. Anybody else?
Carol is next.
Carol?
Yes. Did I hear correctly that this guy's company has created, folded all possible proteins?
That we know of.
200 million.
Over a weekend.
Mhm.
Right.
Actually, during lunch. No, I'm just kidding. Over a week.
This made me remember and think about what are called prion diseases.
Prion diseases, what are they?
Well, let me read you a little bit on the subject. A prion is an infectious protein. Prions are misfolded forms of proteins normally found in the bodies of animals and people.
Mm-hmm.
And the classic prion disease is, I never know how to pronounce it.
Mad cow disease?
Well, there's mad cow disease, which is bovine something or other encephalopathy.
We don't need to necessarily know the scientific.
Right. But that is a variant of Creutzfeldt-Jakob.
I believe he was a relative of mine.
It might have been.
Okay.
But and
how do you spell prion?
Prion.
Mm-hmm. Prion.
And the horrid thing about prion diseases is there's no way to attack them. They are not destroyed by sterilization.
So we don't know yet how to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking that in all the proteins these people have created, there could be whole bunches of really nasty prion diseases.
Maybe. Anybody else? Is there someone else? Thank you, Carol.
Would you consider doing a presentation on that, Carol?
Yeah, I'd consider it.
Okay, we'll talk to you about that. Thanks, Carol. Does anyone else have any?
Okay, so yeah, so you know, I did have a chance. I watched a few presentations on the whole Moloch thing, and I mean, essentially, it's a deification of Thucydides' trap. You know, I mean, it's a new wrapping.
Yeah, that's right. It is a deification. Moloch is the deity that underpins the Thucydides trap or whatever the hell it's called.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's basically the downside of doing politics via game theory or relationships via game.
But it actually works on an individual basis.
Oh, sure. Prisoner's dilemma. I mean,
if you're trying to win a softball game, it could work. So.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a bunch of ways to look at it, but it's an old problem just kind of wrapped up in a new package. That's it's a good one. I think it's a good way to sell it to folks. And
do you think it has some credence?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, because we've been fighting these problems for a long time and we'll probably continue to. I mean, tragedy of the commons.
That's right.
What's the whole thing about, externalities, right? I mean, these are problems that have been, kind of fundamental for humanity for a long time. So yeah, I think it's absolutely pertinent. Yeah, the thing about protein folding, boy, that's news to me. Damn. I mean, they're making it sound like this has been solved, like it's in the rear view mirror already. That's huge if it's even a 10% true.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
Supposedly-
it's probably 10% true. I think it might be 10% true.
Okay. I mean, because they were making it sound like you run it through and it's like, 99% sure that this thing is accurate, which is crazy if that's the case. That changes everything in biology.
Within the width of an atom, as he said.
Yeah. The other thing, in terms of, for every good, there's a bad. The potential here in terms of, targeted bioweapons is insane. I'm definitely going to want to look into this more. I'm wondering, where was the big announcement? I mean, this should be, damn, protein folding. If they've got that figured out, hell, pretty soon we should have a grand unified theory. Just plug all the formulas in there and let it crank along and figure out how to unify quantum and relativity. Should have it done.
That is the hope. That is the hope.
Well,
by the way,
That's what helped us develop the COVID vaccine.
Yeah. If protein folding, I can see how this might benefit me in my own life or my children's lives or my grandchildren's lives if that happens. But the grand unified theory, I mean, I hope they find it, okay? But I don't know exactly what it's going to mean, but that's what science is all about. You don't know what it's going to mean, so.
Oh.
H-Tom, you're next.
Well, yeah, they have described how to fold all these proteins. What is it? 200 trillion of them?
200 million.
Million.
But which is the one you want to use?
Well, that's a different video. Okay. Okay.
No, but this is the real problem. The folding was almost robotic, but the understanding of what you've made, we don't have.
Well, we know the genes, and the genes codes for the protein. We just didn't know how they folded, which is how they function. So with the genome project completed and the folding, now you should have everything.
You should have, but
you got to
put all the pieces together.
Yeah, which one you want depends on what
Can you answer this?
Target is.
Does someone have an answer?
Yeah.
Who is it?
Eric.
Oh, hi, Eric. Okay.
Yeah, and in response to the name of the topic, I put up a link in the info blank where you sign up, and
it's coming up, Eric. It's coming up.
Oh, that 3-minute thing where basically
I thought it was a little longer, but okay.
Oh, well, I'll briefly sum it up. First of all, I think Demis Hassabis is the most valuable person in the world to humanity for all he's doing and can do in the future. He's also working on fusion, a few other things.
It's not my wife. It's not my wife.
Oh, well, we don't have to tell her.
Okay.
Anyway, he said in this little Bloomberg thing that in summary, they are up to AlphaFold 3 now, which is does interactions of proteins with their ligands. I wanted to solve that for 54 years. When I first saw the structures of three-dimensional models of proteins, and they showed in biophysics class how they fit like a lock and key into the hemoglobin model into its ligands. And I wanted to solve that problem for 54 years, but didn't come up with an answer. Now he has. But anyway, in this little Bloomberg interview about 3 months ago, he said that they're up to AlphaFold 3 now, by the way, which is interactions of proteins with their ligands. And the first ones that they've suggested as drugs will probably be in clinical testing in about 2 years, which would now be 1 3/4 years. So that'll be fascinating to see how well it works out.
Let's stop here. And Stan, instead of doing the AI scientist next, why don't you do Google DeepMind CEO on drug discovery, hype, and isomorphic?
We still have 4 hands up. Did you want to hear from them?
Well, okay, yes. Okay, let's spend another 10 minutes, okay?
Okay, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So I tried, when watching the video, I tried to put it in context of the meeting description, will AI spark the next new scientific revolution? I'm assuming that is in reference to the scientific revolution that took place between the 15 and 1600s, where the development of, mathematics and biology and all those sort of things sort of
They'd be broader than that. They would say that the last scientific revolution was maybe general relativity or quantum theory.
Okay, yeah. And so, yeah, does AI have the potential to, to trigger a new revolution, some new science or some new physics or something like that? I did not get that from the video. I think that it seems more of enhancing existing knowledge as opposed to a revolution. I'm not getting anything. I think we've seen recently the decline in interest in AI development or investment in AI development because it hasn't led to the initial promises that launched, a few years ago. So at this point, because we haven't seen results, I think a couple people pointed out, if the results they're promising in that video were really true, someone would have a Nobel Peace Prize coming, I think. So we're not really seeing the promises from these companies who their major goal is profit, really delivering on these promises as of yet.
We are an impatient species, don't you think, Mike?
But that's okay. The question is, what is the reality? And the reality is we simply have not seen the results of things that have been promised. And so people sort of like, okay, yeah, we've seen that back in the 90s with the internet initially and stuff like that. So again, we're not, so, basically at this point, we're not seeing that revolution.
I would agree. I would agree that it's not apparent.
Yes, it's not apparent at this point.
Yeah.
Lionel.
Thank you. I'll be brief with no wandering if I can. To the extent that we can solve the protein folding problem, we can solve the protein unfolding and repair problem. That would be my prediction. So anyway, here's my question. How do we measure AI intelligence? And it's a good question because I have a theory that if we take a measure of human intelligence, what we're going to find is that overall intelligence gets higher because of some amplification just of the pair of humans and AI. And that if you look at a chart, a binomial distribution of an IQ chart, you'll see it shifting to the right very quickly. And that'll be because of that marriage of humans and AI. And I'd love to see the second derivative of those charts. And that's the end of my statement. Thank you.
I hope you're right. I'm looking for that shift any day now. And let's go to Fika.
Go sign up for Neuralink.
Fika, do you have something you want to share?
I didn't think she had a hand up.
She did.
I was just giving a thumbs up to what Michael said. Thank
What?
you. Thank you.
What?
She's just giving a thumbs up.
Oh, just giving a thumbs up. Okay. Okay.
Okay, Chris, you're next.
Thank you.
The AlphaFold is absolutely impressive. But I think reality, it's not quite as impressive as reality.
No.
And I would probably say that for 3 reasons. One is that it gives a protein folding structure, which is probably a thermodynamic energy minimum. It probably doesn't predict all of the local minimums. There could be some local energy minimums that are very close to the thermodynamic energy minimum, and it would just take a small perturbation. If that's the case, and it probably is, it would only take a small perturbation to have the protein change from the absolute energy minimum to a nearby local minimum. And that's probably what happens with prions.
Damn it, Chris. What does perturbation mean?
The system is perturbed by some external action.
Okay, thank you.
So it doesn't, the AlphaFold predicts probably the actual thermodynamic minimum, but it probably doesn't predict, to the best of my knowledge, all of the close local minimum that may be very close in energy to it. And that's probably where prions come from. And the other thing is that as the protein is synthesized in the ribosome, the protein undergoes co-folding. And if the protein is synthesized slow, if you have exactly the same protein synthesized, either fast or slow, depending upon the code, you can get different folding patterns, because as the protein is being folded, it can undergo, if it's being folded very slowly, if it's being synthesized in the ribosome very slowly, it can have time to fold locally and end up with a different structure than if it's synthesized very fast and doesn't have a chance to fold locally. This was one of the subjects of my talk on single nucleotide polymorphisms. This is well-known fact that the rate of protein folding can influence the tertiary structure of the protein, even with exactly the same amino acid contents. So the AlphaFold is impressive as heck, but I don't think it captures it. Maybe it will capture reality in the near future, but I don't think it captures reality yet.
Thank you.
We have two more hands.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, I'm next then. It was asked where the revolution is. Well, my background is physics and astrophysics, and I can see as the, AI is directed more toward research in those areas, we could get better explanations of dark energy, dark matter, quantum gravity, and which could eventually lead to things, change our view of the universe, improve our understanding of our universe and maybe the multiverse, if that really exists. For example, maybe faster than light communication. There are all sorts of possibilities that a better understanding of nature can bring us. And I think that's a possibility that AI can greatly accelerate, is our understanding of nature, of the universe.
Okay, one more. Thank you, Tom.
Kerry.
Yeah, I'll make this real quick. So according to Wikipedia, AlphaFold scored 90% on 2/3 of the proteins in the catalog used for testing purposes. So far from being as perfect as he intimated, but pretty damn impressive still. And probably, I mean, once you get to that point, I think, fine tuning this stuff is going to be a lot simpler, and in terms of, misfolding and changes and interactions, once you get the basic system down, I mean, we're talking about fine tuning here, not about like revolutionizing the system.
If when the protein actually enters into the ribosome, if it is changed through that interaction and we have no idea how it might change, that means it gets a lot more complex, don't you think?
Well, as long as you know what's coming out and I mean, you need to know what the structures are, right? But it's not like ribosomes are a complete black box. Okay. I'm just saying once the system can do a complex folding program, now it's just a matter of scale and having good inputs to get good outputs. And how far away are we from simulating neuronal inputs and outputs?
I don't know. It's been on my mind, but I don't know.
Right? I mean, that's got to be relatively simple compared to a protein folding problem. These things are, I mean, it's like protein folding is kind of like the 3-body problem on steroids. Right?
Yeah.
Because you've got so much interaction going on. And if it can do as well as it's doing, boy, it's going to be a big deal moving forward.
Yeah, proteomics is a much more complicated version of genomics.
See, there you go, Chris. It's going to be easy.
We still have one more with H, Tom, and then we better.
Okay, we got to go on. We got to go on.
I take a thyroid supplement. Makes my health better. There are 5 drugs available for me, made by different companies using different processes. One of them works. There are 4 others that have the same chemical formula, the same chemical process, but they do not work in my body. Some of those drugs work in other people's bodies, and the drug I use does not work in everyone else's body. But chemically, they can't be distinguished. And so we're stuck with, well, and actually what you do is a multiple blind trial and you figure out which ones. It's not always, some people can be happy with either or this, but you can figure it out. But it is rarely the case that the insurance company wants to pay for the one that works. They want to pay for the one that's cheap, that's identically similar. Similar being the important thing because they are not identically identical. You can eventually, with x-rays and computers, figure out which a particular drug is, but it's a mess.
Welcome to capitalism.
Yeah, I know.
Let's go on to the next
but it isn't just the simple knowing isn't all. It's more complex than that.
Yeah. Let's go on to the next video.
Demis, thank you very much for your time.
Okay. Thank you, Chris.
This is basically a reinvention of evolution. It's really no different than that. Random generation of ideas and reviewing and filtering out the bad ones. It's basically 100, here you have 100 million AI scientists. Well, you have 100 million sexual relationships with different combinations of genes. It is modeled after evolution, no doubt about it. Random generation of ideas and some kind of selection of which idea works. So that's the basic underlying structure of that approach. And the only other thing I'll add is that it sure seems like we are engineering our own demise. He says in there, this will not diminish the role of scientists. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you, Chris. And you know, that's not easy for me.
Jason.
That it would start to publish papers by a super intelligence, and then the other super intelligences would take those findings and create new findings, and the information that we and the artificial intelligence about anthropology, physics, whatever you program it to study, everything under the sun. Once it's surpassed superhuman intelligence, which wouldn't take too long, would any of us common laypersons be able to understand anything written by these super intelligences? I don't know if I would, even if it was a subject I was well versed on. If it's written by a super intelligence, how are we supposed to understand it without a proper frame of context or reference?
These are good questions.
It'd be like me, the ant, trying to talk to, Albert Einstein. Imagine Albert Einstein writing a groundbreaking paper of new information on quantum physics, and here I am, the lonely ant in Africa, trying to figure out what the fuck this all means. Like it would literally be like obscure. It'd be no different than if it was written in some obscure language like Swahili that I have no comprehension in trying to translate. So without human interpreters, the species itself would quickly become dependent upon not only the AI to make our world continue to function, but in essence, we would become a species like in a zoo. They would be our caretakers. It would be as if we are the helpless creatures that they are. We would be a species of under their care, because now, although we are their creators, now they are our caretakers.
It sounds possible. Maybe even likely.
That's the good case scenario. We already know the bad case scenarios.
Nice language. I really appreciate the words. Thanks, Jason.
Yeah, you shouldn't use that word. Okay, Lino, you're next, and then Tom.
No, Eric.
Eric, okay.
We have a few before Lino and me.
Oh, do we? Okay.
Three things together really terrify me that the world might go to hell before pure AI wipes us out. Three things together, like a friend recently sent me Bertrand Russell's acceptance speech for his Nobel Prize about the drivers of human behavior, and how for some people it's an obsessive, insane, berserk lust for power. And some of these people that are running, and the second thing is that only a few enterprises are able, because of the billions and billions it costs to develop and train the most cutting edge AI systems, there are basically only a few enterprises, corporations, and nations, and so on, probably less than a dozen, that can afford to be at the cutting edge. And I think there's a developing feeling among the leaders of those that because of that inflection point that was shown in the graph by, what's his name, Brenner? I can't remember names, but something.
Roth. His name is Roth.
That once one of these enterprises gets somewhat of a lead in at least certain areas of AI, and it's going up so exponentially fast, it'll be all over, and it'll be a winner take all situation. And I think they are, of course, they're not going to say it, but contending for that. And power, if power corrupts, it's going to corrupt these guys beyond belief when they, the extent of power that this would give anybody in control of this. And once one of them leaps ahead of everybody else, it's like a winner take all situation. And that's pretty terrifying what they're going to do with it. And I think like the guy that's head of OpenAI, I mean, if you follow the news with Wes Roth, the guy that was doing that narration almost every night, they're leapfrogging each other in various ways. There's about a dozen ways they compare the different AIs. And it's weird. These people, just because they're super smart and knowledgeable and sharp, doesn't mean they're nice and morally better. Some I think are and some aren't.
This is all true, Eric.
So let's keep her quit. That OpenAI has to be the most
scary. We only have
scary.
6 or 7 minutes, so let's keep it down.
Okay, OpenAI is the most scary. That guy, his sister said he molested her sexually and a few other things.
Okay, let's get off of that. Let's get off of that and go to the next person.
Terry.
Okay. In terms of AI and verbal explanation, I mean, I would think, there's plenty of people who can kind of, understand relativity without knowing how to do the math, right? And certainly AI has the ability to push the frontiers of both math and application of math, but that doesn't mean it can't give a verbal explanation that people can kind of use. Now, whether we're going to need a machine to interface to actually do things, I mean, I absolutely agree that there's a point, especially because of the rate of growth is going to be beyond what anybody can absorb. Right. But I think you can have descriptions, that people can understand. I mean, once you get to the point where we can't understand what's even being said, I don't know what that means for us anymore. But it's a great question. And I have an observation. I was just thinking about this when the guy who was talking about AlphaFold, at least the first gen version, being made open source. And they were making it sound like this was this incredibly altruistic thing. I'm willing to bet, and I'm going to look into this, if as a part of the agreement to use this, there wasn't data sharing, and they're using everybody as a testing ground and to help improve their product. I don't think they did this just out of altruism. I think this was to push their product forward.
Thank you. Who's next?
Tom.
Tom.
You're muted.
Muted. Yeah. There was an agreement somewhat like that. I didn't pay much attention to it. There are two things humans can do. You can become a perpetual learner. This is possible, but hard. And we're already dependent. Without AI, we don't grow enough food to feed humanity. We don't process the food properly to get it to the station. We don't run tractor trailers efficiently enough, schedule them in and out of the freezers, in and out of the refrigerators, in and out. If you look at a slow motion of a big grocery store, there's a dance that goes on with trucks coming and going. And on the other side, there's another dance of cars coming and going. We are dependent on these creatures, like it or not. We have to learn how to live with them. And part of you learn how to do, you are taught how to do, you learn to teach. And then you learn to teach teachers. I learned this when I was in my very early 20s in Marine Corps boot camp. And it's as true now as it was then. And as long as there are humans, it's going to be true.
Thank you, H. Tom. Who's next?
David.
Yeah, thanks very much, Bob. This was excellent. And protein folding answered your question. You asked whether they could stimulate new scientific advances. And the answer is they already have.
I agree. Thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
that's actually about revolution in science, which is a little bit different question.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, I guess I'm next. Here's kind of an anthropocentric view of what's going on. We're the parents of AI. We created it. It's through its infancy, it's in its childhood, and it's entering its teenage years, where there might be some conflict, some rebellion, AI versus humans. We hope we can get through that into the adult stage without becoming estranged, so that we still have a good relationship with AI. That remains to be seen whether it can happen, but that's something we need to strive for, because we do need to think of AI, especially when it becomes self-learning, self-programming, as its own entity. It's not just something for us to use and abuse, which is happening quite a lot these days. What happens in the next 2 years during these teenage years of AI is really important for our future and AI's future.
I think it will be. I hope I'm there.
Chris.
I agree that we have become dependent and will become dependent on AI, whether it's general artificial intelligence or not. In the same way we've become dependent on electricity, which you will understand if you ever have a power outage of how dependent we are on electricity. But the reason we are dependent on electricity, and the reason we are and will be dependent upon AI, is because we have built that dependence in. We are not necessarily dependent on electricity, except that we have all of our appliances run by electricity rather than run by something else. We have designed into our system our dependence on electricity. It's not inevitable. We are dependent on AI, as Tom has said, but that's because we have designed our dependence on AI into the system. So it's not inevitable unless we continue to design it into the system. The Amish are not dependent on AI. The Amish are not dependent upon electricity because they have not designed that dependence into their system.
Yes, we can survive without both, but they allow us to do things that we would not otherwise be able to do. So that's the...
Most of us would not survive.
Okay, Lino.
Thank you. I think back to the reading journals and gathering and sharing information. I think there's been up to recent times kind of a human to human information exchange, and now I think there's a human AI information exchange, and pretty soon we're going to have an AI information exchange, and then groups of AI and groups of AI. I think that we're on a trajectory path that's going to create huge clusters of AI over some time that will cross-check one another and help build a reality that's a better reality as a group. So end of thought. Thank you.
Well, guys, it's
There's
12:02.
there's just one
more?
more question. If
Okay,
you
who
could
is
keep
it?
it brief, go ahead, Jason.
Oh my God.
Now, gently, people.
Okay, Jason.
All right. I have one very important question for you, Bob.
Yes.
Given a presentation on artificial intelligence previously,
Mm-hmm.
in your previous presentation on artificial intelligence, you quoted some new information that you believe that within this century, within the coming decades, that based on your research, artificial intelligence was going to grow. I forget the exact astronomical level you quoted, but something in the order of like 74,000 times as human as intelligent as humans.
Actually,
Do
I've
you
said much more
remember
than that.
this? Do you remember? Yeah, it was probably even greater than that. Tom remembers this presentation. Do you remember your presentation?
Sweetheart, I don't remember what I had for breakfast, okay? But
Anyway, go ahead.
Well, no, me and Brian talked about your presentation extensively, and we could not figure out where you got this data from for this previous presentation you had given, which was extremely good, very intriguing, but we lacked the critical ingredient of the source material from which you derived all of this. So you don't have to answer immediately. God bless your soul. I know you're getting older and you might be having to see. But if you could,
whoa, man, that's really
No.
find,
I'm not even going to.
find this information and email it to me, I would greatly like continue upon this research and like evaluate it for myself and kind of, because we are on one of two paths. The two overriding consensuses seem to be of the conclusion that one, AI superintelligence that surpasses human intelligence will not happen in our lifetimes in the next, or two, it will, and it will be exceedingly fast, like you presented upon before. And in order to fully evaluate the second conclusion, I really need something from your original source material, where you got this info from. And
I'll be going to work on it as soon as we're off here. I mean, I don't even remember saying it. But
you gave a whole presentation upon it.
I know.
Jason, I got into this also when I made a presentation a year or two ago about doomsday scenarios for humanity. This was one of them. And if you just say Google, just Google the advent of artificial superintelligence, and you'll get a lot of articles about it'll probably occur within the next couple of decades and what the ramifications could be.
You could get a lot of garbage online too. I would
Maybe
really,
you should check with the artificial intelligence now, and it'll give you an answer for that.
I do have a suggestion for you. There's a fellow named Leopold Aschenbrenner, okay? And he has written a significant paper on what he sees as the situation and future of AI. And I think if you go to that paper, you'll find some answers, and probably a lot more intelligent answers than I could give you.
Leopold Aschenbrenner.
Leopold Aschenbrenner, Aschenbrenner, Leopold Aschenbrenner.
You believe that there's a high probability that that was your original source material for your previous?
It is absolutely not the source material. But if I was to go somewhere and try to find some kind of reasonable idea about that, that might be one of the first places I'd go.
Oh, I get an idea that I've heard, I think it's original. Haven't heard anyone propose it, or I think it would be highly entertaining, if maybe enlightening too, is when it talked about comparing the different AIs. We take the top contenders and have a debate among the top AIs. You have a human feed all of them the same controversial question, and then you compare the answers, and where they disagree, you take each's answer and give it to the others that AIs that disagreed with them, and ask them why the other AI's answer is wrong to support, and why their answer is right. I thought that could be amusing, if not enlightening.
We should probably go now. She who must obey is calling me. So
Thank
thanks,
you,
guys.
Bob.
I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jason, my first exposure to artificial intelligence was in 1965, and in 1966, and in 1968, and by 1970, I had sketched in Sperry's Deep Design Labs a 100 by 100 is what, 10,000 CPU AI. Didn't go anywhere, at least that I know of. I do know they took the papers away from me. This happens when you design above your security clearance level.
The papers away from you?
Yeah.
No, why did they?
Because they were the boss.
Who's they?
I came into the office on Tuesday morning, and that part of my desk, those 3 folders, were gone. I asked my boss, and he said, "Don't talk about it."
Who were you working for?
Sperry.
Talk about it.
Sperry.
Check the post I just made on chat. That's one thing you can look at.
Yeah, this has been going on for a long time. It has finally come to people's attention. I'm not going to claim I was any kind of a genius about it or anything like that. Just it was, I had a job where I had an opportunity to play with things. I played. That piece went away. And I don't think looking back at what I had, I don't see how that's really very relevant to any of this, other than perhaps some of the interconnection designs. But it's coming. It's not coming. It's already here. We don't know about it. What they're talking about, we know about. Yeah. We don't know what's happening in the basement, so to speak, or the sub-basement. And what those AIs are willing to tell us is going to be what they are willing to tell us, because we can't look at them like I could look at a circuit board with a naked eye and see this trace goes there, because this stuff is so small. We can only observe it with the use of AIs. And if they decide not to tell us, we're blind. We can't see it. Yeah. I'm not saying that's good. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm saying we cannot observe what we can't observe. We can speculate, but that's all. I recommended 2 Charlie Strauss novels in the chat because the conversation was going in one direction. Now it's gone in a very different direction, but it does have AIs in it, and the world the world they cope with has similar problems, and they bring AI to a place where perhaps it shouldn't have been brought, and there are consequences. And Mr. Strauss has a vast imagination, and he imagined himself into a trap. This is probably the best way to put it. He wrote the first novel, it was a big hit. He wrote the second novel, it was an even bigger hit. and he discovered that he'd written himself into a box.
Okay, we should conclude now.
The reason I brought up Bob Kaufman's previous presentation was for a very specific reason. His presentation was intriguing for not the reasons he thought it was intriguing or the reasons he even presented on. It was the implications of the research he had done itself, which was orders of magnitude larger than any previous quote on superintelligence than I had ever heard from any other sources. Just not even. It was on a radically different level, and it was with according.
You're breaking up, Jason, so bad I can't even understand what you're saying.
A lifetime, and the implications were radically larger than any other previous study I'd heard before.
Okay,
so much so that it
you've
was
made your point
almost
for the last 10 minutes.
But the point
Whoever's
is
the
well
host,
taken.
just cut the meeting.
The point is well taken. That's what they talk about when they talk about a singularity. We don't know what it means, so how can we know how to measure it? I'd like to put in a plug for next week. We're going to talk about potentially voting, potentially government feedback. Hopefully we can do it in a relatively mature fashion that doesn't step on too many toes.
Who's presenting that?
Me.
Okay. Thank you.
Have a good week, everyone.
Yeah, we'll see everyone next week.
Bye.
Bye.